Some have suggested that we have never truly been free, because our entire universe might actually exist inside a black hole. If this is true, then the black hole at the center of our galaxy, and even the space you breathe, could be trapped within an invisible gravitational prison. And the latest discoveries from the James Webb Space Telescope seem to be bringing this theory closer to the truth. What does this discovery truly mean? The question is, if we really are inside a black hole, then where is the boundary of the universe? How is it formed? Behind these questions lie profound propositions about the origin and future of the cosmos, and even our own existence. So in the time that follows, let's dive deep into this series of untouched cosmic phenomena and see how it upends our perception of reality. All of these questions must begin at the black hole's event horizon. If the event horizon is a door that is forever sealed shut, then what lies behind that door is what is truly chilling. According to classical physics, anything that crosses the event horizon will ultimately fall into a singularity, a point where volume approaches zero, but density is infinite. Space ceases to exist there. Time comes to a complete halt. All laws of physics break down. In other words, this is where the universe rips up its own rulebook. Roger Penrose proved this with rigorous mathematics in 1965, pointing out that as long as gravitational collapse meets general conditions, a singularity is inevitable. Stephen Hawking took it a step further, extending this singularity theorem to the entire universe, suggesting that our Big Bang itself might have been a universe-level collapse. This sounds like our ultimate fate can only be endless annihilation. But in the quantum world, the situation is completely different. Quantum mechanics tells us that particles don't just obediently follow the commands of classical physics. They can exist in multiple states, and can appear or disappear without a clear cause. More importantly, they are bound by the Pauli exclusion principle. No two identical particles can occupy the same quantum state. It's like an iron law of the cosmos. Even gravity, no matter how strong, cannot squeeze all particles into a single point. So scientists incorporated this quantum effect into the equations of a black hole. The result was staggering. The singularity doesn't form. Instead, when the collapse reaches a certain limit, quantum pressure suddenly intervenes, like an invisible wall, forcefully pushing back against gravity. What happens next is a violent rebound. Imagine a rubber ball compressed to its absolute limit, then instantly bouncing back, releasing an unimaginable amount of energy. On a cosmic scale, this scenario is the birth of a new universe. Even more incredibly, this quantum bounce isn't random. It naturally leads to two phases of accelerated expansion. The first is the inflation we are familiar with, which explains how the early universe could expand to its current scale in an infinitesimally short time. The second corresponds to the accelerated expansion we observe today. And the mysterious force we call dark energy may very well be an after effect of this rebound. In other words, the Big Bang might not have been the beginning of time, but a rebirth after a previous universe collapsed to its limit. The reality we inhabit is not the start of cosmic history, but a stopover in an eternal cycle. This leads to an unsettling question. If black holes can give birth to universes, are the dark abysses we see in the sky swallowing old worlds while simultaneously birthing countless new ones? And could our universe be one of them? If this were all just speculation, it might not be convincing. After all, there's no shortage of hypotheses about the universe's origin, each seemingly elegant, but always lacking that fatal piece of evidence. But the issue is, if our universe is truly the product of a black hole, it would have to leave a mark. Just like a child, no matter what they grow up to be, will always carry genetic traces of their parents. So scientists began to ask, does our universe carry the genetic markers of a parent universe? The answer may be hidden in a set of abnormal data captured by the James Webb Space Telescope. When Webb unfolded its golden eye to gaze into deep space billions of light-years away, astronomer Lior Shamir noticed a strange pattern. In his survey of 263 distant galaxies, a staggering 60% were spinning in a clockwise direction, while only 40% were counterclockwise. On the surface, this might not seem like a big deal, but you have to understand, in a truly random universe, this ratio should be like flipping a coin. Close to 50-50. Any slight deviation should be smoothed out with a large enough sample size. But this time, the asymmetry not only existed, it was too clear to ignore. In other words, this wasn't statistical noise. It was a force acting on a universe-wide scale. And behind it may lie an answer we are least prepared to face. Shamir further discovered that this spin preference wasn't confined to one region. On the contrary, it was more pronounced in the most distant galaxies, that is, the younger the universe we see. It's like following a river upstream to find its source. The closer you get, the clearer the water, and the closer we get to the universe's infancy, the more clearly we can see the traces of this spin bias. So the question is, why is this happening? In traditional cosmology, there is a core assumption known as the cosmological principle. On a large scale, the universe is isotropic uniform and without a preferred direction. This means no matter where you stand or which direction you look, the universe should appear roughly the same. But Webb's discovery has dealt a sharp blow to this assumption. This spin preference means the universe is not entirely random and symmetric. It may have been endowed with a preferred direction from the very beginning. Scientists immediately thought of black holes. According to Einstein's general relativity, a black hole can only transmit very limited information to the outside world. You can't know what kind of stars or planets fell into it, or even what kind of matter it once devoured. The only history that can leak out are two numbers: its mass and its angular momentum, its spin. This means that if our universe was truly born from a parent black hole, then it inherited its parent's spin from the very start, like a genetic code etched in its DNA. This spin would become the underlying fabric of the new universe, and its traces are what we see today in those galaxies billions of light years away, seemingly dancing in unison around an invisible cosmic axis. Please note, this is not just a romantic metaphor. It is a cold, hard law of physics. The conservation of angular momentum tells us that spin doesn't just vanish. The spin of the parent black hole would be faithfully written into the space-time geometry of the child universe. And over billions of years of evolution, this subtle spin preference would gradually manifest in the distribution and motion of galaxies. So, the 60-40th split we see today is likely not a coincidence, but the signature of a parent universe. And if this hypothesis holds, it will overturn our most fundamental understanding of the cosmos. Because if the universe is not isotropic, then all our cosmological models built on that assumption will need to be re-examined. From the details of the Big Bang to the mechanics of cosmic expansion and the explanation for dark energy, everything may have to be rewritten. What's more chilling is that this rotational asymmetry isn't just a data anomaly. It suggests that our universe is not an isolated, accidental creation. It's more like a child in a vast family tree, bearing the mark of its parent, quietly continuing its legacy through spacetime. Perhaps the symmetry and randomness we always believed in were just a misunderstanding of reality. And that hidden cosmic axis is the proof left behind by the parent black hole, like an ancient seal stamped upon spacetime, quietly waiting for us to discover it. But if this ancient seal is real, what does it mean? First, it completely shatters the illusion that the universe has no direction. The cosmic picture we learned in school always said that on a large scale, it's uniform, with no special direction or location. But this hidden cosmic axis is like an invisible tether stretching from the parent universe, pulling our entire reality towards some unseen orientation. In other words, our universe may not have grown freely, but was guided from the beginning by the spin of its parent black hole. This idea sounds almost fatalistic. You can imagine that the birth and spin of galaxies, and even how they cluster together, might not be entirely random, but are instead dancing along an invisible thread. That thread is the angular momentum passed down from a black hole. Scientists describe it as the universe's DNA. It doesn't tell you every detail of the future, but it carves a clear outline in the skeleton. The question is, what exactly does this inheritance affect? The latest calculations show that it doesn't just change the spin direction of galaxies. It might even be connected to the Big Bang itself. You might think the Big Bang was the beginning of the universe, a spark suddenly ignited from nothing. But the combination of quantum physics and general relativity tells us the situation is far more complex. When a black hole collapses, matter is compressed to its limit. According to classical physics, a singularity should appear here, infinite density, where time and space cease to function. But quantum effects don't allow this infinity to happen. They erupt at the critical point, like an invisible rebound, turning collapse into expansion. Thus, our Big Bang was likely not the beginning of everything, but simply the moment of that rebound, like a cosmic spring compressed to its extreme and then suddenly released. And the initial direction of that rebound likely inherited the spin of the parent black hole. You can think of it as our universe's first breath, carrying the rhythm given by its parent. That is why today's galaxies show that rotational asymmetry. This makes the entire universe look like a grand cycle. A black hole swallows an old world, triggers a rebound under quantum pressure, and on the other side, births a brand new universe. The new universe evolves for eons until it, too, accumulates enough black holes to continue passing on its matter and angular momentum. And we may be living in the middle of this cycle. Think about what this means. Our Big Bang wasn't a mysterious miracle from nothing, but a natural consequence of a parent black hole's collapse. Those physical constants we thought were perfectly fine-tuned might not be a coincidence. but genes left by a parent universe. Even the uniformity of the cosmic microwave background could be a side effect of this rebound, rather than the result of an inflation we have to add as an extra assumption. So that cosmic axis isn't just a matter of direction, it is fossil evidence of the entire cycle. It tells us that our universe is not an isolated, one-time event, but a continuation of countless deaths and rebirths. But with this comes a more startling question. If the universe is truly cyclical, what is our so-called cosmic fate? Is it endless expansion towards a silent heat death, or will we eventually be compressed again, collapsing into a new parent black hole to start the next rebound? Or does this cycle itself have an end, extinguishing completely at some point? Science has no answers for now. But at least we know that ancient spinning seal is quietly telling us one thing. We have never been truly free. We are just following the path left by a parent universe, continuing to play our role in this grand cycle. But the question is, if all of this is true, what kind of cage are we trapped in? The answer points to a chilling fact: the event horizon. It's like an iron gate written into space-time by the universe, absolutely one way. It allows everything in, but nothing out. Imagine you are in a perfectly sealed dome theater. The lights, sets, and plot on stage all seem to unfold freely. But no matter how hard you try, you can never leave this dome. Our universe is such a cosmic theater. The cruelty of the event horizon is that it restricts not just matter and energy, but information. In other words, even if our civilization develops to the point where we can ignite stars and destroy galaxies, we still cannot send a single message beyond this black hole. To the outside world, our entire history, all our efforts, all our glory, are just a momentary flash, then silence. Think about it. From the perspective of the parent universe, our 138 billion years of cosmic history might be just a brief streak of light, like a shooting star in the night, and in its sky no one would even remember it was ever there. So does this state of imprisonment really matter? You might say, but we live our lives here just fine. Stars still burn, the earth still spins, life still goes on. Even if we're in a cage, our daily experience is still real. Yes, that's right. For a prisoner, the light and air in their cell don't seem fake. They can still foster love, pain, creation, and dreams. But the real question is this reality one we chose for ourselves? Or is it just a script arranged for us by a parent universe? What's more unsettling is that this cage is not as cold and dead as we imagine. It seems to still be influencing our existence. The asymmetry and galaxy rotation revealed by the James Webb Space Telescope might be the signature left by the parent universe. In other words, we are not autonomously acting out the universe's script, but are being guided forward by some unseen geometry and laws. You can imagine it as an invisible rope, gently tied to the backbone of the cosmos, pulling the entire universe in a fixed direction. And within it, we think we are free. This situation leads to a heart-pounding philosophical paradox. If we are imprisoned without knowing it, does the imprisonment itself still have meaning? For example, if you can never leave this universe, but here you can still love, create, explore, and feel pain and joy, has your life lost its meaning? Or, perhaps meaning itself has never depended on freedom, but on experience. Of course, some would argue that freedom is not an illusion. It is the core that truly determines meaning. If our universe is indeed a prison cell, then all our explorations and progress are nothing more than graffiti on the prison walls. The stars we see, the equations we study, the poems we write, none of them can ultimately cross the event horizon. In other words, humanity's greatest civilizational achievements might be, in the eyes of the parent universe, nothing more than a slideshow in a cage. But this doesn't mean our efforts are worthless. In fact, it is precisely because we know we cannot escape that every effort becomes more profound and precious. We may never be able to break through the boundary, but within it, we can still burn with an unprecedented light. Think about it. Isn't this remarkably similar to the attitude of ancient philosophers facing the inevitability of death? They knew life was finite, yet they still chose to write poetry, build cities, and pursue meaning. Our cosmic imprisonment might just be an enlarged version of the same situation. From a scientific perspective, this imprisonment is not a metaphor. It's a harsh fact. The event horizon is not just a spatial boundary, it's a tomb for information. No signal can escape it faster than the speed of light. Even the strangest phenomenon in quantum mechanics, quantum tunneling, offers no way out. Wormholes, the shortcuts of science fiction, if they truly exist, must still obey the rules of the event horizon. You can go in, but you can never come out. Therefore, we must face this ultimate dilemma. We may be born as imprisoned beings, and all our scientific exploration is just a prisoner, measuring the distance between the bars of their cell. It sounds bleak, but from another perspective it also means our universe is a perfectly safe greenhouse. No external forces can disturb it, and no higher-level cosmic civilizations can invade. Here, we evolve and grow, as if protected by a shield built for us by the parent universe. So the question returns to the beginning. Being imprisoned but having a complete, real experience. Is this a curse or a gift? The answer to this question may depend on whether we are truly alone. Imagine, what if black holes are not just monsters that devour, but wombs that give birth to universes? Then this universe we are in may not be the only prison cell, but just one room among countless others. Every single black hole could, on its unseen other side, be gestating a brand new universe. In other words, the starry sky we see might not be the end, but just one level of a massive, nested labyrinth. You might ask, doesn't this sound too crazy? But if you think about it, there's a startling logical inevitability to it. The immense energy and space-time curvature that a black hole possesses during its collapse could very well be the starting point for a new universe. The quantum bounce theory has already provided the mathematical basis for this possibility. Collapse doesn't lead to nothingness, but rebounds into a new space-time. And if such a rebound can happen inside every black hole, then what we are facing is not just one isolated universe, but a vast family composed of countless universes. This family has a name, the nested universe, or multiverse. Imagine an endlessly branching cosmic tree. The trunk is the parent universe, and the fruits are the child universes it births. And within those fruits, new branches and new fruits can grow. We are situated within it, seeing a universe that is vast and boundless. But perhaps it's just one small fruit on the entire tree. And in deeper levels we cannot see, there are countless universes older and larger than ours, continuing their own stories. At this point, a stunning inference emerges. If every black hole is a universe's womb, then our universe alone could give birth to more offspring than there are stars in the Milky Way. Astronomers estimate that there are at least 100 billion galaxies in our universe, and each galaxy contains millions or even billions of black holes. Multiply those numbers, and you get a result that almost transcends human imagination. Our universe could potentially give birth to over 10 to the power of 20 child universes. And each of those child universes would go on to birth more. This means that reality may not be a single timeline, but an infinitely recursive structure. There is no first-generation universe, and no last-generation universe, only the relentless procreation through the river of time. So, how does this relate to the imprisonment we were just talking about? The connection is profound, because it transforms imprisonment from being just an endpoint into a cycle of reincarnation. Imagine a prisoner locked in a cell, never able to get out. But suddenly, he discovers that every cell in this prison leads to a new cell. And in that new cell, there's a new world, a new starry sky, and new life. The imprisonment still exists, but it is simultaneously an opportunity for constant rebirth. Even more tease that these nested universes might not be empty. They could very well, just like ours, give birth to stars, planets, and even intelligent civilizations. In other words, we are not alone. We are just separated from each other by insurmountable event horizons. Imagine countless civilizations in their own universes, lighting stars, building cities, and writing histories, yet never being able to meet. They might, just like us, look up at their night sky and wonder if they are alone, unaware that in a universe on the other side, the same eyes are staring into the darkness. This sounds almost cruel. Countless universes, isolated from and ignorant of each other, like being in innumerable adjacent but non-communicating prison cells. Every civilization repeating the same questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? Are we truly alone? But if you look at it from another angle, this isolation may not be a tragedy, because it is precisely this separation that allows each universe to have its own unique story. Like countless different books placed in a vast cosmic library, each has its own independent chapters, but together they form the complete works of existence. And among them, the most astonishing thing might be the universality of life and consciousness. If the mechanism of black holes birthing universes is part of the natural law, then every universe must have the conditions to foster complexity. Life is no longer a lonely miracle, but possibly the norm between universes. It's just that we can never communicate. And so, an ultimate question emerges. If we can never communicate with them, does their existence still have meaning? The answer is likely yes, because even if we can never see them, they are, just like us, writing their own epics in the darkness. And their existence itself is the best proof of the universe's creativity. So maybe imprisonment is not a cage, but a form of protection. Like plants in a greenhouse, not destroyed by external storms. Each universe slowly grows in its own isolated spacetime. We cannot cross the boundary. But we know that in those countless unseen universes, there is life like ours, with questions like ours and desires like ours. This is the deepest revelation of the nested universe. We are not alone, but we are destined to be isolated. But the question is, if we are destined to never cross the boundaries of the universe, is anything we see truly real? Imagine, you reach out to touch a table and feel its hard, cool surface. But physics tells you that what you call hardness is actually just countless electrons repelling each other. There are vast empty spaces between any two bits of matter. The reality we experience might just be a surface representation of information. So what if we take it a step further? What if the entire universe is actually a projected image? This isn't just a wild idea. Modern physics has proposed a revolutionary theory, the holographic principle. It tells us that all the information contained within any three-dimensional space can be completely encoded on its two-dimensional boundary. In other words, the galaxies, stars, planets, and even you yourself that you see might just be a projection of an informational hologram on the event horizon that surrounds our universe. It sounds esoteric, but this isn't science fiction. It's a necessary inference from the physics of black holes. According to the fundamental principles of quantum mechanics, information cannot be created or destroyed. But black holes seem to break this rule. Anything that falls past the event horizon can never return, seemingly vanishing forever. This paradox forced scientists to find a solution. The conclusion they reached was stunning. The information isn't destroyed. It's completely encoded on the surface of the black hole. In other words, a black hole is like a cosmic hard drive, recording everything that has ever fallen into it. And so, an astonishing association emerges. If our universe really exists inside a black hole, then everything we see, the sun, the Milky Way, even our bodies and thoughts, are just three-dimensional illusions projected from the information on the two-dimensional surface of the event horizon. You think you're sitting in a room watching a video, but in reality, you might just be a complex piece of code on the universe's hard drive. You might ask, doesn't that mean we're living in a giant simulation? The answer is perhaps, because the holographic principle aligns almost perfectly with the simulation hypothesis. Imagine a supercomputer. It doesn't need to store all the details in 3 dimensions. It only needs to record them on a 2-dimensional surface and then generate a 3-dimensional experience through a projection algorithm. This would reduce its computational load from a cubic level to a square level. For a system running an entire universe, this means a massive increase in feasibility. And the event horizon provides the natural boundary for this kind of computational projection. So the question becomes, can we ever truly distinguish between reality and simulation? Probably not, because to us, all sensory experiences are real. You touch the table, and it does stop your hand. You see the stars, and they do shine in the night sky. Even if they are all projections, their effect on us is no less real. So scientists proposed a bolder idea. Perhaps the universe has a kind of inheritance mechanism. They call it cosmic DNA. Imagine how living organisms rely on DNA to pass traits from generation to generation, constantly continuing the features that allow for survival. What about the universe? If every black hole can give birth to a new universe, then the new universe will inherit certain physical properties from its parent, such as the values of fundamental constants, the geometry of space-time, and even the preferred direction of galaxy rotation. This means that our universe was not randomly generated, but has evolved over countless generations. Those universes with chaotic physical laws could not form stars, and thus couldn't give birth to new black holes, let alone produce offspring. Only those universes suitable for forming stars and complex structures could continue the lineage. Over time, after countless rounds of cosmic natural selection, a reality like ours finally emerged, a greenhouse almost perfectly suited for the growth of life. This is the stunning part of the cosmic DNA theory. It tells us that the fine-tuning of the universe is not a mystery. Everything we see today may be the result of countless rounds of cosmic procreation and selection. You can think of it as a cosmic family tree. Every black hole is a reproductive link. The parent universe's angular momentum, matter density, and fundamental constants are passed on to the child universe like genes. And the asymmetry in galaxy rotation detected by the James Webb Space Telescope might be the birthmark of this inheritance. If this is true, then the physical laws we observe are not just cold, hard numbers. They are more like a genetic code. They tell us that we are not the first universe, and we will not be the last. But the question is, does this inheritance mean we are destined to be just copies? Does it mean that every awakening of life in the universe is just repeating an ancient program? Here, the logic takes a subtle turn. DNA in biology is not just about replication, it also allows for mutation. Mutation means possibility. It means evolution. Similarly, cosmic DNA might also allow for variation. Certain physical constants might shift slightly in a new universe. The vast majority of such shifts would lead to barrenness. No stars, no planets, no life. But occasionally, a shift would create conditions even more suitable for complexity, making life and intelligence more likely to emerge. And so, such a universe would give birth to more black holes and procreate more offspring. From this perspective, life and intelligence are no longer just accidental visitors in the cosmos, they're a goal etched into the cosmic DNA. Because a universe without life cannot understand itself, let alone continue to perfect this grand cycle. So perhaps we are not the lucky ones. We are the inevitable products. We are the result of cosmic DNA, a refined version after countless generations of cosmic trial and error. But this leads to a spine-chilling question. If life and intelligence are the natural result of cosmic DNA, are we then burdened with some kind of responsibility? Does our existence mean more than just living? Does it mean we must continue this inheritance? In other words, every advanced civilization might be a reproductive organ of the universe. When they explore, build, and eventually even manipulate black holes, they are actually helping the universe to procreate. So what about humanity? Will we one day also become the carriers of the next generation's cosmic DNA? This sounds almost like destiny, as if all our scientific efforts are ultimately pointing to one goal, not to escape the imprisonment, but to allow the cycle of imprisonment to continue. And that is the most profound irony. We think we are pursuing freedom, but we are actually fulfilling the mission given to us by a parent universe. So the question becomes, if all our struggles and creations are ultimately just to lay the foundation for the next universe, what is the value of our existence? Perhaps the answer is hidden in the metaphor of inheritance itself. The meaning of genes is not just in continuation, but in the constant emergence of new possibilities. We are not just copying the program of the previous generation. We may be injecting new potential into the universes of the future. In other words, cosmic DNA is not just about imprisonment. It's about transmission. We are prisoners, but we are also creators. We are trapped in the prison of a parent universe, but at the same time we hold the key to creating the reality of the future. But this immediately raises a sharper question. If the universe is passing on a genetic code through us, what is it truly trying to pass on? Is it just physical constants? Is it just the seeds of galaxies and stars? That seems insufficient. The answer may be more astonishing than we imagine. What the universe truly wants to pass on is consciousness. Imagine, cosmic DNA evolves generation after generation, experiencing countless collapses and rebirths, fine-tuning one universe after another that can foster complexity. Stars form, planets appear, life quietly emerges. But if life remains only at the level of instinct, how is it different from the rocks on a planet or the dust in a nebula? Only when life evolves consciousness does the universe, for the first time, have a window to understand itself. This is why many physicists and philosophers are suggesting that consciousness may not be a byproduct of life, but the true goal of cosmic evolution. You can view the entire universe as one long experiment. The purpose of this experiment was never to see how long stars could shine, but to, at some point, give birth to a being that could look up at the stars and question everything. And so, a stunning inference emerges. Consciousness itself is the ultimate legacy of the universe. Scientists call this possibility the consciousness singularity. Not a technological singularity, not a sci-fi trope of AI ruling humanity, but a much deeper evolution. When countless conscious beings gradually expand and merge, they eventually approach a kind of near-infinite awareness. Imagine such a future. Countless intelligent civilizations distributed across countless universes, each developing in its lonely imprisonment, but through their respective genetic codes, gradually moving toward the same path. Their consciousness gradually extends, no longer confined to individual bodies, no longer limited to small planets, but resonating with each other at the quantum and cosmic levels. At that point, the universe might, for the first time, become truly self-aware. It sounds a bit mystical, but this is not an empty fantasy. Think about the history of our own civilization. A few thousand years ago, we were guessing at the meaning of stars around a campfire. A few hundred years ago, we discovered that the Earth is not the center of the universe. And today, we can detect the afterglow of the Big Bang from 13.8 billion years ago. In a very short time, consciousness has completed an almost unimaginable expansion. And this might just be the beginning. Some might ask, if consciousness is truly heading toward an infinite singularity, what is the meaning of our individual existence? Will we be drowned on this path, becoming just one drop in an ocean of consciousness? This is the paradox of the consciousness singularity. It is both terrifying and exhilarating. Terrifying because we might lose our individual boundaries. Exhilarating because we might attain a form of existence far beyond what humans can comprehend. More importantly, it connects perfectly with the cosmic DNA we were talking about before. Imagine, each generation of the universe is like upgrading the genes for complexity for the next generation. Stars are the wombs, planets are the cradles, life is the seed, and consciousness is the ultimate fruit. So as we continue to grow within the genetic code left by our parent universe, the mission we bear might be to take consciousness one step further than the previous generation. This also explains a long-standing puzzle in science. Why are the physical constants of the universe seemingly tuned just right? They allow for long-lived stars, stable chemistry, and just happen to let life evolve complex structures like the brain. From the perspective of DNA, this is not a coincidence, it's an inevitability. The universe is fine-tuned this way precisely so that consciousness can emerge. But the question becomes, what does it mean for consciousness to head toward a singularity? Perhaps this is the universe's ultimate exit. Imagine a scenario. As the universe heads toward heat death, stars extinguish, black holes evaporate, all matter verges on nothingness. It seems like the end. But before that, consciousness has completed its mission. It is no longer confined to a material carrier, but through quantum inheritance and holographic projection, it enters the next cycle. In other words, matter will eventually perish, but consciousness might be encoded into the next universe's code through cosmic DNA. At this point, we seem to finally understand why we are trapped in this cosmic prison. It's not for punishment, but for protection. Because in the infinitely vast parent universe, only this kind of imprisonment can provide a stable enough environment for consciousness to complete its long evolution. And so, the boundary between imprisonment and freedom becomes blurred. We thought we were in a prison, but we are actually in a greenhouse. We thought we were pursuing freedom, but we are actually completing the universe's procreation. We thought we were just observers, but we are actually the universe's eyes. And when consciousness truly heads toward the singularity, perhaps an ultimate reversal will occur. We will no longer be prisoners, but creators. At that point, perhaps the parent universe will welcome a new beginning. But the question is, would we be willing to voluntarily take that step? Perhaps that step is the entrance to another cosmic cycle. Because when we say the word creator, we have to face a harsher fact. Any creation is preceded by destruction. And the universe is no exception. Scientists have long predicted that even without external forces, our universe is not destined to exist forever. Galaxies will drift apart, stars will extinguish, and even black holes will, in an unimaginably distant future, gradually evaporate. This process has a name: Hawking radiation. This is the stunning theory proposed by Stephen Hawking. He found that even though it seems nothing can escape a black hole, it actually leaks energy slowly over time, like a glacier that never completely freezes. Black holes will, over an extremely long period, evaporate bit by bit. In other words, no black hole is eternal. They will all eventually die. So, if our universe is truly a child universe of some parent black hole, what does Hawking radiation mean? It means that this cosmic prison that confines us is actually, quietly, heading toward its demise. Don't misunderstand, this isn't alarmist. Even on a cosmic scale, this process is still almost infinitely long. For our black hole universe to completely evaporate, it might take 10 to the power of 100 years. This is unimaginably longer than the current age of the universe. But long does not equal eternal. Time is the most ruthless executioner. Imagine, when the last star extinguishes and the universe falls into complete darkness, all galaxies are pulled apart to a point of no return, and black holes evaporate one by one. At that point, there will be no more light in this universe, no more sound, and no more life. This is the so-called heat death, a universe cooled to a point where no usable energy remains. It sounds utterly hopeless. But don't forget, the story of the universe has never been just about endings. Because the evaporation brought about by Hawking radiation is not simply annihilation. Scientists speculate that, in this process, the information inside the black hole is not truly lost, but is released in another form. In other words, the entire history of our universe, the evolution of galaxies, the rise and fall of civilizations, and even the emergence of every consciousness, might be, in some encoded way, carried into the next cycle. This is the so-called cosmic phoenix. Death is not the end, but the fuel for rebirth. Perhaps when what we see as the end arrives, a new universe has already begun to sprout on the other side of some unseen boundary. It will inherit our universe's DNA and, carrying our imprints, begin a new round of expansion. This is like a torch being passed on continuously. Each universe burns itself out to light the way for the next. So our question becomes, if everything is destined to return to nothingness, does this journey still have meaning? Perhaps the meaning lies precisely in this continuation. Imagine every atom in your body. Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron. They were all born in the cores of ancient stars. Those stars have long since died and turned to stardust. But their legacy did not disappear. Through countless rounds of collapse and explosion, they eventually formed you. You are the product of a cosmic death. The same logic might apply to the entire universe. Our existence today might be the result of a parent universe passing on its information to us when it died in a black hole. And so Hawking radiation is not a cold judgment but a gentle bridge. It carries our world to a new dawn. In other words, the end of the universe is not a period, but a comma. So don't you find it ironic? In the entire cosmic cycle, we are but a brief interlude. But it is precisely this interlude that allows the memory of the parent universe to continue. So the question becomes, when everything returns to darkness, what will we leave behind? Is it the civilizations we built, the science we understood, or just the trace that we once existed? Perhaps none of them. Perhaps what is ultimately left is that which is more resilient than stars, the spark of consciousness. Because matter will eventually decay, and stars will eventually extinguish, but consciousness might continue to be passed on in one cycle after another. At this point, a new paradox emerges. If death is just another form of rebirth, should we fear it? If Hawking radiation is the countdown for our universe, what if it's counting down, not to destruction but to the beginning of the next round? But the question becomes, does this next round really have to happen in the future? Or could it have already started in the past, without us even realizing it? In general relativity, there is a hair-raising possibility: closed, time-like curves. Simply put, time is no longer a straight line, but is bent into a loop. In this kind of geometry, the future is not just waiting for us. It could also, in turn, influence the past. In other words, your existence today might have already participated in the initial conditions of the universe 13.8 billion years ago. It sounds like sci-fi, but this is not a fantasy. Near a spinning black hole, Einstein's equations allow for time to be warped to its limit, creating such cyclical paths. Matter and information no longer just move forward, but loop back to their own source. If our universe was truly born inside a black hole, then such a time loop is not impossible. This leads to a stunning idea. The fine-tuning of our universe might not be a coincidence. Those physical constants, so perfect they are breathtaking, were not given at random, but because a future consciousness cast its vote in the quantum bounce of the past. The reason we can exist today is precisely because our future selves have already ensured that the universe, at its birth, went down a path that allowed for the development of life. Imagine what this means. We are not bystanders in the universe, we are co-conspirators. When you look up at the stars, thinking you are just gazing into the past, you might be silently influencing the future, and even the past. Consciousness may not be the result of cosmic evolution, but the reason the universe could exist at all. This also explains why complexity always seems to emerge from chaos. Why stars ignite, why planets form, why life can walk out of the primordial soup. Perhaps it's because time is secretly looping back on itself, with future intelligence constantly correcting the paths of the past. And so, the universe is like a self-weaving loop, with no real beginning and no real end. But the question is, if our future can really influence our past, do we still have what we call free will? Or are all our choices just to ensure that the closed curve can be closed? But if our choices are just to make this timeline close, does free will still exist? Or are the decisions we think we're making actually just a script the universe has already written? It sounds suffocating. But wait, physics gives us another possibility. The answer might be hidden in quantum entanglement. You know, the quantum world never plays by the rules. Two particles separated by 10,000 light-years can instantaneously respond to each other, as if transcending the limits of spacetime. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But what if this spooky connection exists not just within our universe, but extends beyond it? Imagine, our universe is not an island but one node in a vast network. Every universe birthed by a black hole is like a server in this network. They cannot communicate with each other through classical means, but through quantum entanglement, through wormhole-like quantum channels. They might be secretly sharing information. What does this mean? It means the evolution of our universe may have never been isolated. The seemingly random quantum fluctuations we observe might be neighboring universes whispering to us. Even those inexplicable anomalies in the cosmic microwave background could be watermarks left by this trans-universal network. If this is true, then free will might not have disappeared, because we are not simply moving along a closed time loop, but are making small but real choices in a larger multiverse network. Every decision we make could become an informational ripple, traveling through quantum channels to influence the evolution of another universe. Like an invisible hand, weaving countless parallel universes into an imperceptible but real web. But with this comes another problem. If we are truly in a multiverse network, are there risks to this information? Can we not only influence others, but can others also influence us? If a civilization much older than ours has already mastered trans-universal quantum communication, how would they view us? Would they choose to guide us or to completely block us? In other words, our so-called loneliness might not be because there's no one else, but because the network's firewall has long been activated. So the question becomes, if all communication is cut off, what is the meaning of our existence? Perhaps the answer was never external, but within ourselves. Think about it. The very reason we doubt the reality of the universe is because we have consciousness. And consciousness itself might be the universe's greatest creation. It allowed a clump of indifferent matter to, for the first time, have the ability to gaze upon itself. It made the birth of stars not just a physical process, but the starting point of meaning. So even if we are truly trapped inside a black hole, even if civilizations outside our universe will never respond, our existence is still incredibly important. Because the reason the universe knows it exists is through us. Every question, every gaze, every exploration is the universe asking itself questions. It doesn't need an audience. It needs us, on the stage, acting all of this out. Perhaps the so-called prison is not a punishment, but a greenhouse. Here, complexity can accumulate, civilizations can grow, and consciousness can break through the cold limits of physics to approach some kind of near-infinite awakening. And when we finally reach that step, we might find that the universe never truly imprisoned us. It just, in the most ingenious way, taught us how to answer that ultimate question. What does it truly mean to exist?